mean, he was pretty regular there for a while, and then he said he had some family things.
I wonder whether maybe he's caretaker or a family member or something. Maybe, I don't know. But I sent him, I got both their addresses in our notification system, so Amy and Phil will both get them.
Good. Alrighty. Oh, I went ahead and replied to Derek.
I saw that. That's no problem.
And we can't do it in the spring, and we just won't do it in the spring. It's not like we're totally obligated to it. So.
Right. I mean, if we're out of business by then, we're out of business. They can't hold us, but if not, we'll have to figure out something. I heard from Charlie, or actually Paula this week. So anyway, we'll talk about that after church.
Because I sent Paula a message, I asked her to change I said, give me the key and I'll change it. She came up and changed it.
She's big.
I said her, thank you for that. So.
They're just not able to do work anymore.
Well, there was stuff in the trash can,
well,
leaves and
the text was, it's kind of like, this is pretty much our last one, but, so that was it. So we'll talk about some contingency, because we'll have to shred some big trim, but leaves need to be ready. So we'll work it out after service. Yeah, I can do it. I don't know if that's standard, but we'll talk about it.
Okay, welcome to First Universalist of New Madison on this really brisk, comfortable fall day, not too hot. First day to wear a sweater. That actually feels comfortable. I'm more of a fall person anyway. Do we have any announcements? We talked to Derek at El Dorado. They've invited us for a potluck carry-in the Sunday after Thanksgiving. I don't know what the date is, but just remember the Sunday after Thanksgiving. We will have service with Derek. I know everybody appreciates Derek's sermons and services. And since he's taken his new job, he's not been available to be with us on a regular basis like he was in the past. So it'd be everybody's opportunity to hear Derek and then join in the potluck afterwards. So we can look forward to that. The topic this week is dogs. That was kind of general dogs, but I don't know where that came from. It's just something I wanted to talk about. And because it's going to be dogs, it's going to be kind of based on my dogs, which you can see from the picture. That's Pikea, who is no longer with us. And Pikea is a Labrador, and Labradors are not technically known to be lap dogs, but when you raise them from a puppy and they sit in your lap when you're a puppy, they don't learn not to sit in your lap. Not that we wouldn't want him to anyway. So they're in bed with you, they're in your lap, and when you drive in the car, they're looking over your shoulder. And I found, interestingly enough, dogs are a lot like chickens or ducks or geese. They imprint. If you know what imprinting is, when a chicken or a duck or a goose is first hatched out of the egg, the first thing they see is what they consider a parent. So they will follow it and do anything that parent wants them to do. The most interesting part was they were training geese, and I don't know the name, they were Canadian or European geese, to migrate from France, where they hatched, to Morocco, where they overwinter. And this was a story or a little documentary on TV years ago on PBS. The guy hatched them out of the eggs, and then he had an ultralight. You know what an ultralight is? It's like a lawnmower engine with a cockpit and two wings. It looks like you're flying just like a person flying through the air. But these geese were imprinted on that guy, and he actually flew to Morocco. And the geese followed him. That's how he taught them to do the trip. It was a pretty amazing story. Well, dogs are the same. The Pikea, when we got Pikea, we picked him up as a puppy, and he sat in Tara's lap all the way home, and he was Tara's dog. He followed her everywhere. He would not ignore me, but if there was a choice, he would jump into the chair with her. And he was basically her dog. So when he died and we got our new dog, Rocket, I said, "You're driving home, and he's sitting in my lap." And wouldn't you know, he's my dog. He follows me everywhere. So there really is something called imprinting that applies to dogs.
November 30th will be the
November 30th
union service.
Is the Sunday after Thanksgiving.
Sunday after
that will be the union service with El Dorado. Okay, thanks for that. Okay, the prelude, Lover, Come Back to Me. Today's scripture is Luke 16:19 through 21. There was a rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen and lived in luxury every day. At his gate was laid a beggar named Lazarus, covered with sores, and longing to eat what fell from the rich man's table. Even the dogs came and licked his sores. Our chalice lighting. What are you here for? If you came to this place expecting a tame story, you came to the wrong place. If you came for a story that does not threaten you, you came for a different story than the one we tell. If you came to hear of the coming of a God who only showed up so that you could have a nice day with your loved ones, then you came for a God who we do not worship here. For even a regular baby is not a tame thing, and goodness that cannot threaten complacency and evil is not much good at all. And a God who would choose to give up power and invincibility to become an infant for you certainly didn't do it justice that you could have for dinner. But if you came because you think that unwed teenage mothers are some of the strongest people in the world, if you came because you think that the kind of people who work third shift doing stuff you'd rather not do might attract an angel's attention before you, snoring comfortably in your bed would, if you came because you think there are wise men and women to be found among the undocumented travelers from far lands, and that they might be able to show you God, if you came to hear a story of triumphs, tent trembling while heaven comes to peasants, if you came because you believe that God loves the animals as much as the people, and so made them the first witnesses to the saving of the world, if you came for a story of reversals that might end up reversing you, if you came for a tale of adventure and bravery where strong and gentle people win and the powerful and violent go down to dust, where the rich lose their money but find their lives, and the poor are raised up like kings. If you came to be reminded that God loves you too much to leave you unchanged, if you came to follow the light, even if it blinds you, if you came for salvation, not safety, then, my friends, you are in the right place. By Quinn G. Caldwell And that came from All I Really Want, Readings for a Modern Christmas. All right, our affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this church, the quest of truth, its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human needs, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine.
Opening hymn.
First hymn, yes, I missed the first hymn. First hymn is number 11, and that is, O God of stars and sunlight. This is what we live by. Once you've lived with a Labrador, you can never live without one. We are on number 6 right now. And this is my favorite picture of Paikia. Labradors, as you know, are water dogs, and you can't keep them out of the water. Used to take him to the neighbors. They had a pond, and throw a ball out for him to retrieve. And we even did it as it got colder and colder in the winter. He would even go out in the ice water to get the ball. There's nothing to stop him until finally the ice was the place where he could walk on it, and then he would fall through. That ball stayed out there until spring when the ice melted, and he could go get it. Yeah. He wasn't going to go when he fell through the ice, so I wouldn't do that. And his replacement, this is Rocket when he was a pup. About 3 weeks after Paikia died, and you can see the little flag there on the side. And this is Rocket here. That's where Paikia is buried. We have a whole list of all the family pets. Except we don't bury the goldfish. They're too small. Okay. Children's story.
Joys and concerns.
What's that?
Joys and concerns.
Joys and concerns. I'm sorry. Yep. I'm off the beat all over. Joys and concerns. Do we have any joys and concerns?
Light a candle for the stability and hopefully the longevity of the Accord peace, if you will, in Israel and Hamas.
And we'll light a candle for the the sadness of President Trump. He did not get his Nobel Prize for bringing peace between the Israelis and
And it's like a candle for that Nobel Prize winner for peace and her wonderful work in
Venezuela, who is quite the politician. If you heard, she dedicated the Nobel Prize to President Trump, and the Israelis were thronging in the streets, thanking President Trump for all his work, bringing the peace together. We have had the first phase. I am, pardon my skepticism, that the Hamas is supposed to disarm and remove themselves from Palestine. I doubt seriously whether that's going to happen. The Israelis are supposed to allow all the aid to come into Palestine. There are 6 ports of entry of Palestine, and only 1 has been opened so far, and none of the other ones have been opened. So I have questions about how well this is going to work. So far, the ceasefire is more or less holding, so we'll see. I didn't bring a picture, but I thought about it. If you watch the news, you see pictures of Palestine all the time, Gaza and the Strip. 80% of the buildings have been destroyed. 80%. If you look at it, there's barely a building standing anywhere there.
Not much to come back to.
There's nothing to come back to. These people there's nothing but tents everywhere. They're living in tents. Mm-hmm. And even the tents were being bombed. It's like anything, and it's destroyed. This is truly ethnic cleansing, and the whole idea. If you listen to some of the websites on the internet, they actually talk to the Israelis who tell you the whole point is to push the Palestinians out into Egypt or Lebanon or any of the other countries around there, and that's what they said. They can go to America, they can go to Canada, they can go to Egypt. We just don't want them here. And that it can't be any more nakedly obvious that was the intention, was to push them out. And that's one of the peace accord was an agreement on the 2-state Israel and Palestine. The Israelis are never going to agree to that. So we light a candle for the hope of peace. We light a candle for at least the time when no one is being killed at the very moment, and hopefully that will extend. So we will see.
Yeah.
Okay, our continuous one at the problem with the Russians and the Ukrainians. Nothing has changed there. It's basically a stalemate. The Europeans are trying to encourage the Ukrainians and send them as much as they can. The Russians are still pushing the envelope, sending planes and drones into NATO countries. So that is kind of simmering on the edge, and the attention has been on Israel and Palestine. And we'll light a candle for the Nobel Prize winner in Venezuela asked about Venezuelans being blown up on the ocean in boats, and she diplomatically kind of said we want to stop the drug trafficking, and Maduro, the head of Venezuela, she said is directly involved in it, which I have very little doubts that he is. But we do not know who was in those boats. We don't know what they're carrying. The president of Colombia said that one of the boats was from Colombia, which doesn't mean they weren't carrying drugs. But when we're told they were Venezuelans and they were Colombians, you have to question how accurate the intelligence is, which means, and that's the question, that's what they call an extrajudicial execution. Nobody stopped, nobody checked, nobody tried to interdict the boats with the Navy and find out what was in them and arrest them. They just blew them out of the water from the sky. So, right now we have American troops going to Portland, and they were basically paused in Portland, Chicago. Our blue Democratic cities are being described as hellholes. The most interesting thing that I've seen on TV was the people dressed up like frogs, and that was the demonstration that they were seeing in Portland. 5 or 6 people dressed up as frogs in front of the ICE people, in front of the military. It made kind of a comical vision of when people say on the TV that these are hellholes and there's mass violence going on, and you see a picture of frogs jumping up and down in front of the military. It kind of brings a lie to that. So we'll hope we find some resolution there. So far we're on not the best track, but we will see what happens.
It's like a candle that the message of No King's Day gets out to the public in general and makes a difference, as opposed to the Speaker of the House attributing King's Day, No King's Day, to Antifa and to other conservative are actually left radical groups.
Yeah.
So let's light a candle for reason and for understanding as to what that movement is all about versus propaganda from the radical right.
And we stand, as always, behind education, behind critical thinking. Look at something and see what makes sense. Antifa means anti-fascism. And I think I showed you the picture before. The first anti-fascists landed on D-Day in Normandy, commanded by Dwight D. Eisenhower. The first people who were fighting to land on the continent from the United States to end fascism. That's all Antifa is. There's no president, there's no funds, there's no community connection or anything else. It's just a group of people who are anti-fascist. There will be a demonstration in Eaton at the Courthouse Square and in Greenville on the 18th. In Greenville, will be at the Circle at noon. Everyone is invited to come, bring your signs. It's always been peaceful in the past, and it will be peaceful again this time. Interestingly enough, there are pickup trucks with giant American flags that drive around and blow the horn and yell things, but it has still been a peaceful thing. Interestingly enough, the police are always there, 4 or 5 Greenville policemen, but so far they have not had to do any separation. Everybody has been kind of dark county polite in the demonstrations from both sides, which is appreciated. Okay. We light a candle for our absent friends. Hopefully they are doing well health-wise. Haven't seen them for a while, haven't heard from them for a while, but if they need anything, Roberta, we have talked about trying to get together with her, and Cecil. Dolly said she was having some health problems, so hopefully those are resolved. If there's anything we can do to help any of these people, please let us know. So now we go to the children's story. You might have seen this on TV. Did you see that story on the news? This lady was walking her daughter's dog. It's not even her dog. She fell and hurt herself. The dog went out and basically the sheriff was looking for the husband called and said, my wife hasn't come back. She was walking the dog and something's happened to her. This lady fell and couldn't get up. The sheriff's cruiser was looking in the neighborhood. The dog came up to the sheriff's cruiser and stood there, and you heard the deputy say, take me to your mommy. And she the dog led him back to this lady. And she had said the dog had left multiple times looking for help and always come back to her. It wasn't even her family dog. That is what dogs do. That is what we see in the most positive aspect of what dogs can be and what they mean to each of us individually. Okay, let's go to, it's a good story, and it's a lot longer. If you watch the repeat on the news, it's the husband telling the deputy that his wife has disappeared, and then the deputy's driving around, and then the dog comes up to the car. So it's a pretty amazing story. Okay, dogs are everywhere and nowhere. You see them everywhere, on the street, in yards, in stores. You see them a lot in cars and trucks. Sometimes you even see them driving a Subaru, which is the reason we have Subarus, is because they have cars. They have dogs in their Subarus. But you don't really see them. They are just there. They're at your heels, they're in the bathroom, they're waiting in the kitchen, they're taking up space on the couch or in the bed, and not so much anymore, thank goodness, you see them chained in the yard in a little doghouse. Used to be that was the most prevalent thing people used to do. You don't hardly see that anymore, thank goodness. Dogs transitioned from wolves about 15 to 20,000 years ago, they're not really sure, to become, as everybody knows, man's best friend. And what are the reasons they're called man's best friend? For befriending and worshiping and protecting their human providers. They're hunting, they assist us in hunting, in herding, as guards. That's how they started out. And that's what dogs used to be in history, was workers, co-workers with us, and they were appreciated, but they were co-workers. As there is less work going on, fewer herds to herd, fewer junkyards to guard, much less hunting going on, dogs have become a friend of the family. They have become, actually for many people, a part of the family. They are as loved as your children, and probably a lot more attentive and cause you less problems than your children. The dogs have been a part of the human race for a long time. The first recorded one is in Egypt. Anubis, if you have seen pictures of the Egypt, Anubis is a dog that guards the underworld and becomes actually a spiritual guide and protector. For breeds, the interesting thing about dogs, there are more than 300. Some people say 400, some people say 500. They all originally came from the wolf. Dogs, and it's kind of connected, dogs have a pretty short lifespan, anywhere from 10, if you get up to 15, 20 years, that's pretty long for a dog. Which is an interesting thing I heard was, if I can remember it, a dog is, I think I wrote it down here somewhere. A dog is part of your life, but you are the dog's entire life. In other words, when you get a dog, you're the only person that dog will ever know. You may see 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 dogs in your lifetime. Each one is special. Each one has a favorite place. But for that dog, you are the only person that dog will ever know, unless, something happens and you've given it away or lost it or whatever. So, all right, so with the 300 plus breeds, with a short lifespan, you can selectively breed them. You can breed for traits, which if you believe in natural selection and heredity, that is something that we do, and that's how we've got all these different dogs. Interesting sidelight, Labradors were bred to be food sensitive. In other words, treats mean a lot. Food means a lot to Labradors. The reason for that was it makes them easier to train. If you give them a reward, they will do anything for the reward. And the way the vet explained to me was they went way overboard on this, and now Labradors are crazy for food. They will do anything for food. We've had 6 Labradors. This is the first one that does what they call counter surfing. Have you heard that term? He will actually jump up on the counter and take food off the counter or off the table. So you have to either block the counter off, watch him all the time, or block the kitchen off. Even I've got my horse feed. It's like a mix of corn and soybean meal and oats and molasses. I keep that in a garbage can because the coons get into it. If I don't fasten the lid down when I go up to feed the horse, I'll come back. The dang dog will have his head there eating the horse food. And the Labradors are they've been trained to want food so much, and I give him treats all the time, which Tara tells me the reason he's your dog is because you keep giving him treats all the time. So, and that could be. But that is kind of a problem with him jumping up on the table, and he will sit when you have Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner, he'll sit right there and wait, so I have to keep giving him turkey off the table all the way through the meal. So, okay. More often we have a split vision of dogs. On the one hand, loyal, brave, sympathetic, and protective. On the other hand, mangy, dirty, mean, skulking, tail down from one scrap to the next scrap. Why is that? In the Bible, the Canaanite woman who asked Christ for help compared herself to a dog accepting crumbs from his master's table. But they are just as often seen as scavengers living off garbage in the street, unclean and unclaimed. The key, I think, is unclaimed. A dog who has been claimed, befriended by a human, is the epitome of love and loyalty. Our children's story of a dog bringing salvation to not even his master, but only a relative, searching for rescue for a fallen friend, even to approaching cars on the street. Dogs can't read. They didn't recognize the sheriff's cruiser, but they will not fail to seek help. Anyone who befriends a dog and proves their loyalty to the dog will be returned that loyalty by tail wags and unwavering attention. Dog senses include vision, hearing, smell, taste, touch, and magnetoreception. That was a new one on me, and I'll just throw this out for your consideration. This study suggests that dogs can feel even variations in the Earth's magnetic field. Dogs prefer to have their bowel movements with their spines aligned in a north-south position. Dogs, when they go to the bathroom, are lined up north-south. That is something I'm going to start watching. Nobody ever said that, and I've never paid any attention. But I'll give you a report in a couple weeks after watching my dog. Just interesting. As you know, the dog brain is dominated by a large olfactory cortex. Dogs have roughly 40 times more smell-sensitive receptors than humans. Dogs also have an acute sense of hearing, up to 4 times greater than that of humans. They can pick up the slightest sounds from 1,300 feet compared to about 300 for people, which explains why your dog will suddenly and surprisingly awaken you in the middle of the night barking his head off. You shush him and roll over, only to find in the morning the coons have pried off the back porch screen and helped themselves to all the birdseed. The dog knew that was happening in the other end of the house, and we said, "Shut up, we're trying to sleep." When the dog barks, you need to see what is going on. All right, dogs have twice the number of neurons in their cerebral cortexes than what cats have, which suggests, arguably, they could be twice as intelligent as cats. This could also be a reflection of the fact that cats could care less. It doesn't mean that cats can't be trained, it just means cats won't be trained. And I have seen occasional magic tricks where they have trained cats, which is pretty incredible if you think about it. All right, researchers have tested dogs' ability to perceive information, retain it as knowledge, and apply it to solve problems. Studies of 2 dogs suggest that dogs can learn by inference. A border collie showed that he knew the labels of 200 different items. He inferred the names of novel things by exclusion learning and learned to retrieve those items after 4 weeks of training, probably with food involved. Another study of a border collie documented he had learned the names and could associate them by verbal command with over 1,000 words. In other words, you could lay a whole panoply of items out on the floor and say ball, and the dog would go get the ball. You could say doll, and the dog would go get the doll. You could go say bucket, and the dog would go get the bucket. Dogs are as smart as cats, and actually they're on a par with, and as we begin to expand our awareness of what's going on, horses, sheep, pigs, a lot of these animals that we consider dumb animals are smarter than we thought they were. One study of canine cognitive abilities found that dogs' capabilities are similar to those of horses, chimpanzees, and that means animals are not getting smarter. We are just coming to realize they are companions on this web of life, not just inputs to be multiplied and harvested for our benefit. Cage-free eggs, free-range chickens, grass-fed beef, farrowing crate-free hogs, pastured dairy cows, which is, we had a dairy farm for years, and our dairy cows were kept in the wintertime when the ground would get muddy. They were kept inside on concrete. We'd scrape it every day, scrape the manure off, and then they had free stalls which basically is a padded stall with sawdust where they can go in and lay down and stay clean. They have little bars on them, so they can't turn around backwards and poop in the back. They have to go in frontwards. And then the manure comes out on the alleyway and you can scrape it away. But they were like that from like October, November, all the way up until May. In May, we always kept an area of ground with just grass in it and a fence around it, and we would open the gate and turn them out. And this is what the entire herd of 50 or 60 cows would be out there leaping and jumping and just having a great time. This picture does not do it justice because this is what they call a heifer. It's an unbred cow, so her udder is like barely visible at the back. If you've seen pictures of dairy cows at the fair or anyplace else, the udder takes up like 3/4 of the stomach comes back and then it drops down about 1.5 feet. And those udders, when they're out there leaping and jumping, are flopping back and forth, and it had to have been painful. But they enjoyed so much being in their natural habitat, which was out in the grass, and they really enjoyed it. And that was one of the things we really enjoyed every spring, watching them do it. All right, the source shows that nearly 40% of American households now own at least one dog. Think about the changes. Until recently, most dogs were four-legged employees, guard dogs at junkyards or warehouses, herd dogs on the farm. Some even lived their entire lives with sheep or goats, protecting them from predators. And you've seen those shows with shepherds, where the dog basically lives their entire life and protected from wolves and coyotes and bears. And they do a pretty amazing job of that. But with very little human contact, that's what they do. They can be seizure detectors, if you've seen pictures of that. They can be trained now. So for people that have epilepsy, the signs for epilepsy begin to show themselves actually before the seizures start. And the dog will go up and pull on that person's sleeve or arm, and that person knows now to sit down and wait, and the dog will go to the refrigerator or wherever the medicine cabinet is and pull out the medicine, the anti-seizure medicine that the patient needs. Pretty incredible. And you've all seen the pictures of the bomb-sniffing or drug-sniffing dogs and their abilities and what they do. As these dogs' occupations have decreased, dog ownership has increased. Now pets, not servants. Some still guide and support, but most are now a part of the family. They get quality, expensive medical care on a par with children, and their deaths are mourned and remembered with human quality funeral functions, including cremation and burial. I've seen some amazing stories and talked to some amazing people who have spent thousands of dollars, literally $4,000 or $5,000 with a dog that has cancer. It's like what you would do for your kids. And a dog with a shorter lifespan anyway, and you can apply this to even human cancer treatment, and many people do. When they tell you if you take this $40,000 a year treatment, we'll give you up to 3 or 4 months additional lifespan, you have to figure what is the value of 3 or 4 months. I grew up in a farm family, in a veterinary's family, where a dog was a dog, and it still is a dog. My dog, Rocket, has tumors growing on his sides and on his back. Hopefully they're benign, but the vet said we could take one off and do a biopsy. And I said, if you do a biopsy and it's cancerous, you're going to recommend treatment for thousands of dollars. He's a dog. We've had 6, then we'll get 7. Partly when you grow up in the country, when you grow up, and that maybe it's something that's from the older days, you learn to accept life and what it is, and that's part of being a farm kid. You have your 4-H calf as your pet, but you know he goes to slaughter when 4-H is over. You feed the pigs every day, and you like the pigs, and they're your pets, but that's Thanksgiving ham. I told you the story about we raised the turkeys for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Christmas became too much of a pet after that long a time, so Christmas stayed with us as a pet, and we went and bought a turkey for Christmas. We didn't eat gobbling. So, and that's, as I get older and older, I began more and more to question the value of hamburger and steak and chicken and everything else. I still eat it. When we were farming, we butchered our own chickens, butchered our own hogs. I can't do that anymore. I can't do it. And maybe in the next 5 or 10 years, if I live that long, I'll give up eating meat altogether. We'll have to see. All right. Human and the funerals, oh man. A friend of mine had a pet cemetery. They would actually have coffins ceremonies, everything. They are pets now, are becoming a part of the family, and you treat them like family, and I have no arguments with that. If I've told you of my youth as a veterinary assistant, which means I would take the pickup truck full of dog carcasses to the local tankage plant where they were transformed into nutrition for chickens, pigs, or maybe even dogs. When people brought in strays, this was during the big rabies epidemic in the 60s. The police would bring in strays, they put them in cages out in front with a big plastic wrap over it. We'd back the 57 DeSoto up to it and basically kill them with carbon monoxide, put the exhaust pipe in, load up all the bodies in the pickup truck, and I would drive it to the local tankage, which a tankage, you'll still see the truck occasionally driving around, down cows. When we had a dairy cow on the farm that would go down either with a leg problem or a medical problem, the standard thing to do is you call the tankage truck, he puts a looper on their neck and drags them in, then they take them up and kill them and process them. It was, my soft heart was getting to me then. I would just shoot them and take them out in the backyard and bury them. I had a backhoe, so it wasn't that big a deal. But I would dig a big hole and bury there. So there's 3 cows on County Road 72. When they build that for a new housing addition, they're going to find some interesting stuff when they excavate for the basements. The same thing happened at Auburn, Indiana, where our veterinary clinic was. We had an orchard behind the clinic where for a small fee we would bury someone's pet. A lot of people who live in town didn't have any place to bury, and those were the days before you really had cremation. And when you tell them we can take it to the tankage, they would just turn pale. And we'd say, well, we can, if you pay Tim, who was like 14, give him a couple bucks, he'll go dig a hole in the orchard right behind the building here, and you can come whenever you want. We didn't put up headstands or markers or anything else, but it's the same thing. We sold that building to a bank company when my mom and dad died, and we moved down here. When they go in excavating to build the bank, or when the bank is built now, I would imagine they found some pretty interesting stuff in that orchard too. All right. If they didn't take Fido home for a burial, at least they had the satisfaction of knowing the body was intact and in a tended space. And that's what, can you imagine when that property sold in the early 2000s to a new bank, what the construction crew thought as they excavated the foundation. Dogs as food, we have to mention Asian, Korean, China, where millions of dogs are consumed. China basically domesticated dogs in the 15,000 years ago, about the same time. The Shih Tzu, the Pekingese, all the Chinese breeds. They started out as warriors, protectors, the same way as everything else. Only dogs became food in that area of the world, and they are turning into pets at the same time. And just recently, Korea has passed a law that I think you can still have dogs as food, but it's not supposed to be, particularly when there's like a Olympic thing or there's out-of-town visitors in town. They're not advertising dogs as food anymore. I can't imagine they're not eating dogs, but they're not eating them with the alacrity that they used to.
But our president does advertise dogs and cats for eating.
Who does?
Our president.
Yes. Yeah, and accuses the Haitians. Yeah.
I don't think they're available anymore in Springfield, though.
I don't think they ever were available in Springfield. So. And how many of you have seen heard the Jack London or read the Jack London story, To Build a Fire? Have you heard about that one? Many people know the Jack London stories of Alaska. Call of the Wild is the most famous one. You probably read that in high school. He wrote another one called To Build a Fire. A trapper traversing the Alaska wilderness with his dog, he fell through the ice. He desperately needed to build a fire, but basically his gloves were wet, his fingers were numb, and he couldn't light a match. So he called his dog, the idea being he was going to slit the dog's belly open with his knife and put his hands in to warm him up on the inside of the dog. And the dog, in the story, sensing something was going on, stayed just out of reach. So at the end of the story, the trapper froze to death, and the dog proceeded on without him. Just an interesting thing on the intelligence of dogs. And now that's his supposition. That's the story that Jack London told. So we don't even know if that's fact or fiction. Because most dogs, and my question was, if he just put his hands in the dog's mouth, that would warm him up. He wouldn't have to kill the dog, but that wouldn't have made the same story. So it's a pretty gripping story and pretty painful. Okay, where am I here? Dogs can sense human emotion and intentions. They shy away with a tucked tail when you angrily exclaim after catching them rooting in the garbage, and they silently settle beside you when worry or sorrow overwhelm you. They are family, often more loyal and supportive than birth children. Remember, dogs with their limited lifespan are a short part of your life, but for them, you are their whole life. From puppyhood to senility, you are their champion, the deity that provides daily love and care, or disappointment and neglect. It is an awesome responsibility. Don't shirk it. Okay, that's all I have to say about dogs right now, but you'll probably hear more about dogs in the future. All right. And we're trying to make the presentations more interesting, so next week we're going to talk about Halloween. The history of the thing, and what brought that on was just driving around. I cannot believe the number of people with Halloween decorations in front of their house. All these people can't have kids. So are we going into like a juvenile period where not only is our thinking processes being reduced to that of third graders, and we're voting for things that make no sense just because they feel good? Are we doing the same thing with Halloween decorations, spending tons of money on things to impress people who are not really impressed? I don't know. So, all right. For offering, if you have something to share, please do. And we're going to hear Blues in the Night. Closing hymn is number 11, O God of Stars and Sunlight.
That part,
Oops.
we're going to do 411.
411. I'm sorry, I was reading the back part.
What's number?
411.
Part in peace.
Part in peace, yes. presence always be. This, the worship and the praising, bringing peace to you and me. Looking always for peace. Extinguishing the chalice, ripples of love, I know not where you are, whether your soul is traveling the universal highway, or as I imagine, sitting at the left hand of God, being consulted about matters of consequence, or maybe reincarnated as the 1% or as a dog. But even if it has been dissipated with the end of your body, you live in me and in others. Through our memories of you, through your actions in the world, through the love you shared during your life, love that created ripples whose impact will be felt for eternity by those near and far. Let us all live a life that creates ripples of love. That's by J. Lowell. Okay, our postlude is I'll see you again. With the computer because it's not staying up. Okay, gotta have a horse. So you've got the Budweiser Clydesdales, there's your horse, and the dog is the ever-present Dalmatian. We used to have Dalmatians when I was a kid. They are neat dogs too. But I guess I would have to say all dogs are neat. I'm not really a fan of little tiny dogs like Chihuahuas, the little barky ones. But to everybody takes what they like, and it's kind of neat to see them in somebody's coat pocket when they're walking around at Walmart. All right, that ends our service. Have a good week. If you need something, let us know. And basically, just let us know if you're still alive and kicking. We appreciate the knowledge that everybody is in good shape. And we'll leave our candle lit for those who have problems, worries, discouragements that they can't talk about. Coffee and donuts are on tap as usual.